6:35 is our time here on Sky 99.5 FM. Time for us to dive into some news making this morning. On the line with us, Attorney at Law Martin George. He's also a member of the Police Service Commission. Good morning to you, Martin George.
Hi, good morning to you, Jessamy, and good morning to your
George.
listeners. Good morning to your panel, Dr. Wayne and Edison.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
He's speaking into your life again.
Yes.
Martin George, we got the news. Apparently, the family of PC Maynard, it appears that they finally got they are very close to getting that $1 million in compensation that had been agreed upon for those who would have fallen in the line of duty. I mean, this is one policy promise that is coming true. You know, what other policy promises can we hope to see come true where the police service is concerned?
Well, the thing is, I mean, I'm glad for this as a start because it certainly gives some sense of appreciation to the families of, persons who would have been serving in active duty and who are killed in the line of such duty, that at least there's some, concern and care being extended by the state in respect of their loss. So that's a start. One of the other things that we definitely need to see more of is an improvement and more rigorous enforcement of their internal disciplinary procedures. Mm-hmm. We had over the weekend the embarrassing gaffe of a police exercise being broadcast and publicly posted on social media before it was to happen. And it appears that they are alleging that the source of it may have come from within the bowels of the police service itself. Now, if you do not deal with such things immediately and forcefully and effectively, then this continues the general decline of discipline in the police service, and that's a big problem.
Mr. George, how would you define active in context of this compensation? Because the young police officer, Joseph, she was on her way to work, I believe. Would she be eligible, do you think? And there was another police officer in Eastern Quarry. He was at home washing his car and so on, and somebody in the area came and shot him dead. How would you define active?
There is a difference between being in active duty. I would imagine that certainly active duty would be from the time you take up your duty for the day, your shift for the day. So being on the way to work or being at home after work, I don't think those instances would qualify as active duty.
But they are still police officers. They're still police officers.
Yes, of course. The point is you are still police officers, but if you expand the definition that much, I think that it means that almost every circumstance where a police officer is killed in, circumstances apart from dying by natural causes, you would have somebody raising a claim to say, well, he was a police officer, and therefore his family is entitled to the 1 million compensation. So I think the idea is that, look, if during the course of performance of your duties, it's the same thing in a normal employee situation. So if we look at just basic industrial relations law, all right, if you are claiming that, look, you suffered an injury at work or during the course of your duties at work, then that's very different from saying, well, look, boss, I was on my way to do your job. I was on my way to work, to come to work, and I got injured, so you should compensate me for that. That is not the law, and I don't think in this circumstance they would seek to expand the compensation for police officers to include that.
But the expansion of Mr. George is that a lot of these officers, because of the kind of work they do, investigating criminal activity and so on, they were killed.
Well, it may very well be, and I'm not doubting that. However, if it's not something done in the line of your active duty, I cannot see it being something, because then basically every police officer could say, well, look, it may be because I was a police officer why this happened. I mean, look, if one looks at, say, for instance, I mean, if we use a very high-profile example of a murder, the Dana Sitahal murder, there are persons who say, well, look, it's because of her role as a prosecutor in certain matters. But the point is, you never know for sure, and therefore it's difficult to make that definitive determination and then say, well, look, as a result, you are entitled to the compensation. So I think that it's going to open the floodgates way too much. And I think, it may result in people becoming a bit too creative in their claims if you say, well, look, you are expanding it outside the realm of your active duty.
Because you remember that a prisons commissioner, I'm trying to remember his name. He was speaking to somebody on the road.
That's Mr. Hercules.
And he was shot dead and so on.
Yes.
How would you classify that?
Again, that did not appear to be in the course of his active duty, with the greatest of respect. And he certainly was not attacked because he was a commissioner of police. If you remember, that is,
commissioner of prisons.
That is imprinted in my mind, because, I happen to know the circumstances very well. If you recall what the mother of the young boy said, well, she gave her defense saying, well, he didn't go to kill anybody,
Yes.
he just went to rob her. So it had nothing to do with his role as commissioner of prisons.
Mr. George,
Yes,
I just
sir.
want to revisit, since you opened the Pandora's box there, regarding the leakage of classified information. I want to go to court, right? We're going to court with this. I'm presenting evidence. There are 3 of us in the studio right now. Yes? 3 of us in the studio. We're discussing a matter of strategic importance to the nation as it relates to the traffic and all the plans for over the weekend. And it leaks. It gets out in the media. What is this investigating? You're still investigating. It's 3 of us in the room. Mr. Carr, Jesse May, and Wayne Haywood. It must be one of us that had to leak that information.
The thing is, there's another possibility, Edison.
Dr. Wayne.
Dr. Wayne, sorry. There's another possibility.
What's the other possibility?
It could have been 2, or it could have been all 3.
Or it could have been
one person.
Or it could have been none of them. Someone could have put a listening device in the room to capture all conversations taking place therein.
You see, so I wouldn't jump to the conclusion to say, well, look, it must be. I would prefer that a proper investigation be done. You get your evidence. Say, for instance, if it is that you have evidence to show that, look, it was posted from this person's account.
Exactly.
And there is nothing to show that their account was hacked or, interfered with by a third party, then that is the kind of evidence you
that is what you took it, you see, because you're really a lawyer, because that's the evidence I was going to present. Because did you check the phones of the 3 of us? Was it exactly?
So in other words, I don't imagine this investigation should take very long.
Right.
And if that's the point you're making, I fully agree with you. And if you notice how these things are done in any civilized country in the world, these things are acted upon very quickly.
Exactly.
And that has been our problem. You have police internal investigations of police misconduct taking years and years and years to be investigated. How on earth could that inspire confidence in anybody, even in the officer being investigated, because he will feel, well, look, this is a charade and a puppy show, because how could you be taking so long? I am on suspension, my pay is docked, and I'm not on active duty. So then how could that be fair to anybody? And that is a constant cry that I have made, and I've called upon the commissioner to get his act together in terms of a rigorous enforcement of the internal disciplinary procedures in the police service. That is a big part of the problem that we are facing.
Look at the day of total policing. It is
We
not
still
finished as
can't
yet,
get a resolution on that issue.
That's right.
Amazing.
Nobody has been charged in relation to that.
They won't hear
There's been
anything.
no procedure brought, to bring anybody to book at all. And the lawlessness and the rot within the police service continues. And unfortunately, I make no apologies every time when I say the buck stops at the foot and at the door of the commissioner.
So what is the protocol applied in a scenario like this? Police investigating police, as you outlined a while ago, will take, from now till thy kingdom come. Shouldn't they have like an external investigator?
The thing is, what I have proposed repeatedly, and it seems to be falling on deaf ears, but I will keep making the plug nonetheless. There needs to be established an internal affairs unit the same way it is done in metropolitan police forces around the world. You have your team of individuals who may be there. Somebody might be a cashier, somebody might be a clerk, somebody might be a cleaner. So in other words, nobody knows the role that they are performing, but they are part of your internal affairs unit.
You're sounding...
observing. Sorry, go on.
I said you're saying exactly the same thing that we've been hearing from the former National Security Minister Gary Griffith for like forever. The two of you are singing from the same hymn book this morning, Martin George.
The point is, it is necessary, and I keep saying that that's the only way you are going to root out the corruption within the service. You can't do it from outside. You can't have someone sitting on the outside and trying to identify who the perpetrators are. You have to be there within the bosom of the organization. And I have cited the example when I was, spending some time with friend of mine who's a senior officer in the Toronto Police Service, and we were there at their headquarters, and, he kept telling me, he says, listen, I don't know who these guys are, but they may be in, internal affairs. Nobody knows who the internal affairs guys are, and that's how they are supposed to be, because they're supposed to be there in and among you, but not known to you.
But
so,
do they swear
on... You give them such roles. You give them a role as a cook, a cleaner, a maid, somebody sweeping the office, because they hear everything.
But do they take an oath of secrecy? But do they take an oath of secrecy?
Of course, that's something you have to establish from the get-go. So therefore, you ensure that, look, these, and then of course you have your polygraph testing and, all these things rigorously and routinely done to ensure that these same internal affairs officers don't go astray. Because, of course, that could be the worst debacle if they themselves end up, falling prey and victim to the corruption.
But if
Martin George, just as a matter of interest, if we have this internal affairs unit, what then becomes the role of the Professional Standards Bureau? Should it be converted into a Professional Standards Tribunal so that when the internal affairs unit or division does its investigations and officers need to be prosecuted or what have you, that they go before this Professional Standards Tribunal and, rather than facing the regular courts, just as the military has its own military tribunals and courts? Your thoughts?
Well, the thing is, okay, let's understand, there already is an established procedure and protocol within the police service for their internal disciplinary tribunals. So there's no need to, duplicate that effort. That is there already. The Professional Standards Bureau would still have a role, because what will happen now is that your internal affairs officers, they are really just informants. That's their role, really and truly. They are not really investigators. So they are informants. So they will be able to pass the information to say, well, look, this corporal in this station, we've noticed that he keeps taking money under the counter from members of the public, and then the files are disappearing. So professional standards will now know who they are going to investigate and what they are investigating, so then they can now set up a sting operation, whatever. So they have different roles, but you see, the internal affairs person has to be there as the informant, so therefore that is where you get your source information from to know, well, look, who is in corrupt activities, who is doing what. And then now your Professional Standards Bureau can then take over investigation. And then, of course, once you lay the charges, it may either be a criminal charge, which then would be dealt with in the court of law, or it may just be a disciplinary charge, which you deal with internally. But as I say, you need to have a seamless transition whereby even the disciplinary process is conducted with some measure of expedition. You cannot have those things dragging and languishing. And, we've seen scenarios where persons have retired, yes, and their disciplinary tribunal matters are still pending. How could that ever make sense? And
not only that, their reputations would have been destroyed, their families,
No, but apart from that, Jessica, once they retire and the disciplinary matter is still pending, the first thing the officers do is they then apply back for all the monies that were withheld for them from them over the years, and you have to pay it immediately. You have to pay it immediately, because you have no longer any basis for continuing to hold it, because they are no longer within the ambit of the police service, and therefore that is money that were basically withheld from them and are now due to them immediately.
I'm thinking, Mr. George, correct me if I'm wrong, perhaps this was intended to go to one person and by some divine act, it was replicated on the web. Probably it was sent to one phone.
Martin George, hello. Martin George, before you go, I must take a break at this point. We'll take your answer after.
The all-new Sky 99.5 FM. On air, online, everywhere.
6:51 is our time here on Sky 99.5 FM. We continue our discussion with Martin George, attorney at law and member of the Police Service Commission. Just before we took the break, Dr. Wayne asked the burning question, could the leak have been a mistake?
It was
Dum, 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 dum,
Yeah.
dum, dum, dum.
Whether it was or not, Jessime, the point is it's still wrong. In other words, if you're sending it to one person, you're sending it to a million persons, it doesn't matter. The point is, if it is that this is an internal document which is supposed to be confidential and is not supposed to be transmitted or broadcast in any manner, then whoever is responsible for the broadcast of it is wrong. And that's the essential thing. So in other words, even if you were calling one friend to say, well, hey boy, look out, then that is wrong.
But why do I feel that this is not the first time this thing has happened?
Well, I wouldn't be surprised, quite frankly.
I remember there were issues with people in the making reports in the police station and so on, and then eventually it appeared on social media. It happened all the time.
Yes.
Mr. George, the question
an officer in Tobago who was charged recently for leaking photographs of a suspect.
Yes.
In terms of he took photographs of the suspect and broadcast them. So he was actually charged on a criminal offence for that.
What about the informants and their anonymity, Mr. George? If they are in the police stations and so on, and they were able to get all the information which they would pass on to the tribunal, as you were speaking about, when that tribunal is set up and so on, would they have to come forward and give information, thereby blowing their cover?
No, that's why I said it. The way I see it being structured is that they pass their information to Professional Standards Bureau, who then investigate, and then they would be the ones to lay the charges. So in other words, that informant is never called upon to give evidence. All they do is say, hey, listen, Corporal John or Corporal Brown at this station or that station is doing ABC. They then investigate, they gather their evidence on Corporal Brown or Corporal John, right? And then now they present their case. So therefore, the informant, the internal affairs officer, is never brought to. In other words, you have a layer insulating that internal affairs officer from any contact with the accused person.
Just between us, Mr. George, friends, what's the latest? We haven't been hearing anything on the selection process for the last. I think we heard that a company was selected to go out and do the needful.
That's correct. A company was selected, and negotiations have been concluded with that firm in relation to the process. Of course, now the stage is at budget and a proposal to the cabinet in terms of financing the process going forward.
Why is this thing taking so long?
Well, the thing is, you need to speak with our legislators who implemented the process. That's the unfortunate thing. They have set out in an attempt, I think, to maybe make the process more transparent. It appears the net effect is to make it much more convoluted, unfortunately.
Mr. George, for accused officers, trials, if I can use that word, should be public or should they be internal?
Well, I would imagine it depends on the nature of the offense. Say, for instance, if it is like, for instance, something that is part of your standing orders, say, for instance, you fail to wear part of your uniform, or you've not accounted properly for your shoes or your belt or, something that is purely part of your internal procedures, then I would think that that's something, of course, you handle that internally. If it is something that touches and concerns your conduct in relation to a member of the public, then I would imagine it certainly then must enter the realm, quite possibly, of criminal conduct, and then, of course, that should be public.
But haven't you heard of some a police officer or let's say a soldier was tried publicly for some kind of offense, and then he was subsequently also tried internally?
Yes, it's quite possible. It's quite possible. There's nothing wrong with that. Because the point is, you're talking about two different things. You're talking about a breach of the criminal law, and then, of course, you'll have a breach of your internal disciplinary code of conduct and your code of ethics. So it's two different things. So there's nothing wrong with that, because there could be one offense that breaches both sets of rules or laws.
Martin George, I think we have a caller on the line. I just want to bring them up for a minute. Hello, good morning. You're on the air.
A very good morning to you, Jesse.
Good morning.
And to Mr. Khan, Dr. Wayne.
Morning, sir.
Martin George, good morning,
Good
sir.
morning to you, sir.
I just simply want to agree with you, the point you were making when an officer is not qualified for the $1 million. Because an officer can ostensibly leave home for work but never reaches the work. Like a child ostensibly leaving home for school and never reaches the school. Go and break beat somewhere unless and until that child reaches the school and they call the roll and the child is present, then the school is liable. In the same way, when a police officer reaches the station and reports for duty, then he is qualified if anything happens to him. Because people can leave home ostensibly for work, but their intention is not to go to work. A policeman can go to some woman's house, his outside woman, then his wife would say, yes, he left for work in his uniform and everything. But by his woman,
Mr. Santa Cruz, you're going there? Lord.
Martin George, he's making a strong case for truancy officers.
Oh my God.
Officers who are playing truant.
No, but the thing is, I mean, on a more serious note, the thing is, we have to bear in mind, and this is a point that I've made on more than one occasion. Sometimes you may see an officer of the defense force, the prison service, the police service, who may be either beaten, attacked, or maybe even killed off duty in circumstances which, cause, public outrage. But the thing is, I have said repeatedly, we must always get to the facts at the bottom of it and find out why they were attacked or killed. Sometimes it could be because they themselves have been involved in illegal activities and they're the victims of it. So the point is, it's not to say that it is because you were such a good and upright officer all the time. It may be in 90% of the cases, but I am saying that we cannot just take a carte blanche approach to think that, well, because a police officer may have been killed, while off duty, that it's necessarily that, because he was a good, dedicated police officer, that's why he was killed. It may be because of his extracurricular activities, and maybe somebody decided, look, enough is enough, with whatever. So let's just always be careful in terms of, drawing that automatic conclusion. As I say, I will always give the benefit of the doubt, and it may be that in maybe most of the cases, it is because you're a good, dedicated officer. But I'm saying that I can't, say for certainty that in every case it always would be.
Martin George, thank you for your time this morning.
Always a pleasure.
Have a blessed day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir.
Martin George, member of the Police Service Commission on the Breakfast Round Table.
Changing lives one radio at a time. We are Sky 99.5 FM.